All right, fellas, today we're talking about the Tua injury, man. An incredibly sad situation. Could have a good outcome. We're going to kind of go through that, but there is a chance that this could be a really tragic story. Obviously, we're hoping that that is not the case, but CBS Sports talked to a surgeon and they kind of got some of the ins and outs and some of the possibilities of how this can go. And I think it's important because this surgeon isn't tied to Alabama. Alabama's guys are coming out and saying, hey, he's going to be fine, everything's good. And maybe that's true. I really hope that's true, but it's also in Bama's best interest to say that. So, you know, it's nice to kind of have an outside opinion just to see what another surgeon thinks. This injury may have dropped Tua from a top 3 pick in this year's draft, maybe the top pick in this year's draft, to, you know, a guy who may never be able to play football again. Some people are speculating and saying that that is an actual possibility. I don't think that's going to be the case, but CBS Sports spoke with Dr. Lewis Levitt about his opinion on the Tua injury. And in today's video, I just want to unpack some of the things that he had to say. All right, let's get it. Cue the way. Yo, real quick before we jump in, we gotta send a shout out to one of the best sponsors on the channel. Y'all already know what it is, SeatGeek. Now, if for some reason you're unfamiliar, SeatGeek is an app that's designed to simplify the ticket buying process, okay? We're talking sporting events, live concerts, etc. They grade all the tickets on a scale from 1 to 10. They allow you to preview the view of each seat right from the app. If you're attending any live event, you definitely want to check SeatGeek for your tickets. Also, you can get $20 off your first purchase if you use my code FlemLo. Again, all you gotta do, click the link in the description, download the app, use my code FlemLo to save 20 bones on your first purchase. Let's go. All right, man, so let's jump into the doc's quotes. And what you guys are gonna notice is that as we kind of progress through this whole thing, there are just so many variables and so many potential complications that, you know, it makes this whole thing really shaky and a bit uncertain. This was the case where when you dislocate the hip, you have a limited period of time to get the hip back into the socket. Again, because you compromise the blood flow to the ball of the ball and socket joint. Hence, the reason for the helicopter to get him to a reasonable trauma center so that they could get the hip reduced. In layman's terms, the quicker you get that hip back into place, the better. But Bama did handle the actual injury, I mean, as good as you possibly can. They actually had the hip reduced before he even left the stadium. Then they had him airlifted to Houston, out here actually, to the closest A1 treatment center. So that's great. And they didn't wait long to have the surgery. They had it this morning. They say everything went well. And now they're coming out and saying his prognosis to recover fully is excellent. But I still want to go through everything else that this guy had to say as far as potential complications. Once the hip is back in the socket, presumably perfectly aligned in the socket, and I say presumably because that we don't know. Sometimes when you pull the ball back into the socket, you entrap some bone fragments. Therefore, you can't leave it like that. You have to go in and surgically remove the bone fragments. So that's just an example of some of the potential complications. He continued. Once the ball is back in the socket again, then you have to assess through varying tests to what extent is the socket damaged and what you would have to do to stabilize the socket. Often the most common form of this dislocation is to take out part of the socket when the ball dislocates. It takes enormous force to dislocate a hip in a young player like this. This is usually automobile accidents driving the leg onto the socket and then out of the socket. Often you break the socket in this. The recovery for this, even in a young, healthy guy, is 6 to 12 months, and I tend to err on the side of 12 months. Let's say that everything goes perfectly and they're able to restore the anatomy, the bones heal, and he can start his rehabilitation process. The second concern that you have in terms of months ahead is whether the blood supply to the ball was compromised. It is possible that the ball itself will die. So another potential complication, even if the surgery goes well, they won't know until a few more months down the line during the rehabilitation process whether or not the blood supply was compromised, according to this doctor at least. Hence, we give you Bo Jackson's story as to why he ended up with a vascular necrosis. Basically, the surgery went fine, but he'd lost the blood supply. You can simply have a dislocation, get it back quickly, and still lose the blood supply. You can have no compromise to the blood supply, but when you go to repair the socket, you may have to actually pull down the ball or even dislocate the hip again as you repair the socket, and that compromises an already challenged blood supply. It is sort of two phases. Can they anatomically reconstruct his hip, allow it to heal, and then will he be subjected to some sort of deformity to the ball that leads him to severe arthritis and potentially hip replacement in the future like Bo Jackson? So I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory, but it's just, like I say, it's a really scary situation for Tua. If we're honest, it doesn't sound great. There is hope for sure, but there's a lot of potential issues. Dr. Levitt did go on to say that if Tua can come back, the chances of him sustaining the same injury again are slim, would be no more than that of any other player, and the screws and reconstruction, once healed and properly rehabbed, would actually be stronger than before. Bo Jackson did play pro baseball at a high level, but that only lasted a few years. He had a second hip replacement about 4 years later, and he never fully recovered from that. Now, medicine has definitely advanced since then. Tua is younger than Bo was when it happened to him, so things like that are definitely working into his favor. Now, maybe you're an optimist like myself and you're wondering, what's the best case scenario? Perfect scenario. The ball is back in the socket, there's no loose fragments in the socket, it's a single piece of the socket that can easily be put back. He doesn't get any complications, and then if all the guys shine down on him, he can probably get back to playing and retain his professional potential within 1 year. So that would obviously be great news if 1 year from today, Tua is back on a football field. Now, I don't mean in a live game, because I think he's obviously got to sit out the rest of this year. I think he should sit out all of next year regardless, even if things go absolutely perfect, just to make sure he's 1000% healthy. And after missing the rest of this year and then 1 full year, if Tua could come back after that, I mean, that would be a great turnout, just considering where we are today. Now, because Tua's a junior, I'm gonna assume that he goes back to school next year. That's probably for the best, even if he doesn't play. But with that being said, I can still see a scenario where, let's say the draft rolls around and it looks like there's a 95% chance he's gonna make a full 100% recovery, and while he won't play next year, the year after that, he'll be Tua. If things are trending in that direction by the time the draft rolls around, dude can easily still get drafted by a team that's willing to take that gamble and are willing to wait. The beauty of that is he no longer has to worry about school, and he's just getting paid to rehab that hip and shake back. He can start studying, he can start doing everything he needs to do to prepare to be an NFL quarterback. So, you know, that scenario could happen. I think it could work out either way. Overall, if I'm honest, this is a bad situation for Tua. I mean, it really sucks if you're Tua. Like me, just putting myself in his shoes. All I gotta do is play a few more college games and I am guaranteed to go at the top of the draft. The goal that dude's been working toward this entire time. Now he gets this crazy injury and his career is literally in jeopardy. As fans, there's obviously not much we can do. We can just show support, man, pull for the guy, and hope he shakes back. I do plan to follow this story, so you can look for updates on Tua probably a couple times a month, just depending on how often news is actually coming out. So hit me up in the comment section, man. Let me know. What do y'all think? You think Tua gonna fully shake back? Do you think this is something that's going to seriously derail his career? Let me know what y'all think. Don't forget to subscribe and enable your notifications. My name is FlemLo Raps. I'm out at y'all next time, fellas. One.
Yeah, well, I'm no quitter, 'cause I'ma go get it.